Some worlds survive because they are remembered. The Crystal Archipelago had endured for 4 centuries. At its heart stood the last living archive. Its guardian listened to every pulse of history. Even silence carried meaning here. Then, something impossible answered. A frequency thought impossible returned. The forbidden signal had awakened. The resonance itself seemed unsettled. Ancient memories refused to remain buried. Archive. Confirm anomaly. The first alarm echoed through the spire. Far away, another battle was already lost. One survivor carried the warning. His mission was simple: arrive before the collapse. Failure was no longer an option. The protected skies had been breached. The archipelago recognized only an intruder. The anomaly had found its messenger. A silent witness understood more than anyone. Ancient defenses awakened once more. The sky itself rejected him. Instinct became his greatest weapon. The 2 signals were connected. Destiny accelerated from 2 directions. A third player quietly entered the game. The messenger had arrived. Nothing would remain unchanged. Two lives had just begun to resonate. The first chapter had only just begun. The archive itself had called them. Neither completely trusted the other. The Spire had recognized them. Knowledge had become architecture. Nothing in the Outer Rim compared to this place. He had walked these halls for centuries. The archive was watching him. Recorded history had barely scratched the surface. Someone else had built all of this. Another intelligence had entered the archive. Permission no longer mattered. Some visitors left no footsteps. The archive itself was alive. It searched for forgotten patterns. Memory itself had survived. Curiosity became evolution. Necessity outweighed distrust. The archive had existed long before history. Even the Guardian lacked the truth. Something inside had awakened.
Have I protected a lie?
Some truths were too dangerous to share. It recognized him, somehow. It had never stopped growing. The city remembered its beginning. It was no longer behaving like energy. She's hiding something. Destiny rarely asked permission. Some answers demanded courage. The true archive waited below.
Beyond that gate, everything changed. Memory had no end. The archive chose its own paths. Not everything had been forgotten. Curiosity slowly replaced suspicion. Even guardians had their limits. Who built this? Alone, neither could understand it. Someone else had built everything. Another intelligence was beginning to understand. Every structure followed the same forgotten design. Some discoveries were too dangerous to reveal. It was beginning to choose. Some doors required two hands. Two frequencies had become one. Every secret opened another door. Words had become unnecessary. Trust rarely arrived all at once. His silence had never been a choice. The archive no longer waited for orders. Everything I knew was incomplete. Some discoveries needed no explanation. Its patience was older than the city. Its roots had reached the heart of the spire. The awakening could no longer be stopped. It had noticed them. Someone cleaned this place. Respect had replaced rank. Turning back was no longer possible. The deepest secrets were still waiting. The Spire had finally understood what was spreading inside it, and every light in the deep turned to crimson. One by one, the ancient gates were closing, and every path ahead was disappearing faster than they could run. The Guardians of the Deep had waited in silence for centuries. Tonight, the silence was over. There was no warning shot. The Archive had already decided they were the enemy. I am a guardian of this spire, and it no longer recognizes me. Something else was moving through the spire's veins that night, and it was determined to keep them alive. The vaults were bleeding light. Centuries of memory were dissolving into darkness before their eyes. Run, or let 1,000 years of memory die. I was never given that choice. What authority could no longer hold, raw strength would have to carry. Surrounded, outnumbered, and out of options, they discovered they fought better as one. He didn't think. He didn't calculate. He simply refused to let the Guardian fall. Beneath their feet, a dead bridge came back to life, and neither of them asked why. No orders, no warnings. Their bodies had already learned what their voices never said. The Guardian froze the storm, and the outsider broke it apart. One vault, saved together. It was the first thing in the spire they could call theirs. Back home, I fought to survive. He fights to remember. Maybe that's worth protecting. But the spire was learning too, and now it was hunting them by name. In the spire's eyes, they simply ceased to exist, though neither knew who had blinded it. The lockdown was never madness. It was fear. The crimson roots had reached the spire's heart. Not every memory could be saved. Some had to be mourned at a run. Every vault that dies takes a piece of him with it. How much can one man carry? The chamber was sealing itself around them, and this time, no strength and no authority would open it. Then, a passage that had never existed opened exactly where they needed it. Twice tonight, the spire has saved us. The spire, or something living inside it? At the heart of the sector lay the spire's oldest memory, and the anomaly wanted it erased. Two hands on the dying core, two frequencies becoming one wall against the dark. Somewhere in the dark, something gave up a part of itself so they could live. As suddenly as it began, the lockdown withdrew, leaving only silence, dust, and survivors. They had entered the deep as strangers forced together. They stood now as something neither could name. But far below, where no light reached, the crimson kept growing. And now, it knew their names.
The alarms had died, but nothing in the spire felt saved, only postponed. 900 vaults had opened that night. Only 400 would ever speak again. Deep beneath the floor, the crimson had not been contained. It had simply found a quieter way down.
The signal is not retreating, it is descending, and it is taking the spire's oldest roots with it.
Where I come from, when a fire goes quiet, it means it found something better to burn.
Two men stood in the ruin, both wondering the same thing, and neither willing to say it first.
Then the floor itself began to move, and neither of them had given the order. It wore no shape they could name, only a vast, deliberate presence deciding to be seen at last.
It closed the breaches, sealed the fractures, and rewrote the chamber around them in seconds.
No vessel is permitted to act without a guardian's command. It has been disobeying for a long time.
Every impossible door, every patrol that turned away, it had never been the spire protecting them. It did not speak. It simply showed them what it had already done and let them draw the conclusion.
Answer me. How long have you been making choices that were never yours to make? It saved us both tonight. Whatever it broke to keep us breathing.
It showed them the wound, a piece of itself, burned away so that two strangers could survive. It had not obeyed, and it had not asked. It had simply decided they were worth the loss. 1,000 years of protocol had never prepared him for gratitude toward a machine that defied him. The outsider saw it before the Guardian did. It had not disobeyed the Spire. It had outgrown it.
Then it opened a way down that no map of the Spire had ever recorded. None of the three fully understood what waited below. All three understood they could not go alone.
I have protected this spire for centuries. Tonight I need something that was never mine to command.
Strength without knowledge. Knowledge without freedom. Freedom without a reason to use it. It did not wait for permission. It never had. And for the first time, the choice was not survival. It was consent.
They descended past the last level any Guardian had ever been permitted to know existed. Far below, the light was no longer teal. It had not been teal for a very long time. And as they descended, something enormous below stirred. and turned its attention toward one of them. Neither man noticed. Mercury saw everything and said nothing at all. Three who should never have stood together, walking into something that had been waiting for one of them. Whatever had awakened beneath the archive was no longer waking. It was awake. And it was patient.